Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Everybody all right?
I'm
Still
good.
all right.
Still doing well.
Still doing good.
I'm good.
Yes. All right. So today we're going to do something a little bit special. We're going to get to it quick because it's a little bit longer than normal. We have a special guest that we're going to hear from in just a moment.
It's me.
No. You're not special.
Well, it is partially you.
Sort of. But you're not the special
I'm not
part.
the special
You're
part.
not the special part.
Not in that way.
Yes. Before we set up who we're going to hear from today, I want to talk about something that I'm confident that a lot of people from Community Christian, our church, don't know, is that we are a church planting church.
Correct.
And
That is very true.
What that means is practically is from the very beginning of the history of our church, which is on 30 years now.
Yep.
We have been about planting other churches in our area and, well, around the country or even around the world. So, Ed, you were around from day one. That's been baked into the DNA of our church the whole time because we were one of those churches.
Yeah, we were a church plant started by a group of other churches in our state. And early on, they gave money. They're the ones that hired me to come to Coweta County, and with the agreement of the little core group that was here from a church that we closed and restarted this. And early on in that process, there were some things that one particular of our elders, who's no longer around, decided he died. I didn't want to act like he went somewhere.
When you say around,
he's
really
dead.
not around.
He saw some failings in that, and he'd been a very successful business guy, and he was very disappointed with some things and how we were supported. And he said to me, I want us to be the kind of place where nobody starting a church doesn't have that everybody that wants to start a church has the support they need. And he then began to talk to some other people on our board to give me, as a part of my job responsibilities, to make sure that I was supportive of every church planter and that our church would be supportive of every church plant that we could find in our little world, which was Georgia, to do what we can. So over 30 years, and I know the organization we work with now, Stadia, a few years ago asked me to go back and figure out how many churches we had and I'd never done it. And now I know we're right at 31 churches. Well, I shouldn't say you're either right at it or not. We are at 31 churches. We're at 31 churches in 30 years.
That's interesting because we've been 30 years, so that's about a church every year.
Yeah, that's what it averaged out to. Some years we were involved in more than that. Some of the most recent ones is the one you're all going to hear about today, which is Crossover Church in Atlanta. Before that, it was City Church in Griffin and what's the one in here in Noonan?
Foundation in Noonan.
Foundation in Noonan.
Momentum's in Henry
County. And the great thing, particularly about those three churches, Momentum is a church in McDonough that we helped start 13 years ago, I think now, about that time.
Yeah, it has been a while.
And they then helped us start those churches along with another church, which is in Atlanta, Tri-Cities Church in Atlanta is some of our more recent ones. There's now Cumberland Church out in Douglasville that we were a part in planning.
Did you mention the church in Griffin?
Yep, City Church in Griffin.
Church, okay.
So we've been doing this our whole time. We have a couple of others that we're working with these other churches to get started again as we continue to expand this. And our desire is that there'll always be relevant new churches, because what a lot of people don't realize is churches all have a life cycle. We act like they don't, but churches, like people and all organizations, they have a growth cycle and they lose their effectiveness. It tends to be over time unless there's a catalytic kind of thing to jump them back where they start. Most churches that are around 50, 60 years aren't exceptionally effective. And you just don't find many churches that are super effective that are 100 years old. There are some, but they generally have undergone rebirth. So we've always been involved in starting new churches, and a part of every dollar that a person gives to Community Christian Church goes to support a new church. And we make a part of everybody we support overseas is also a church planting organization, because the best way to reach the most new people is through new churches.
Okay. So, having said all of that, we thought because again, we weren't sure that a lot of people around here are fully aware of that part of our DNA. We're going to let you hear from somebody that we're working with right now. Ed's already mentioned this person, but Nathan, you had a chance to sit down, do an interview with them.
Yeah.
Tell us about who we're going to hear from today.
So we're going to be hearing from Scott Free, who is kind of the founding. We had a conversation before we started recording that he doesn't really like any titles, and so he's a pastor though, and he's the founding kind of, I don't know what you'd call, organizer behind City Takers, which is an organization here in Atlanta, which you'll get to hear. They reach people through service and hip hop and love, and he said it obviously in a much better way. But then they planted, which City Takers, along with all churches like us, planted a church called Crossover Church ATL, which is doing some amazing things. And Scott and I really hit it off, which is why we talked for almost an hour in this interview. You're going to hear a lot of cool stuff in it about their church, the organization, the stuff they're doing. Scott himself has a great story, and we even get to have some talk. They run a Christian hip-hop radio show, and I had to ask him for some Christian hip-hop recommendations because I'm a hip-hop guy, but it all's pretty corny to me. And he actually gave me some good ones, so you guys will enjoy getting that if you're a hip-hop person, or if you're not, you'll still like Scott. So
Yeah, you're going to like Scott.
Yes.
Scott is an awesome human.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's get to it. Let's hear from that interview, and then we'll see you guys back right here next week. All right. Well, I'm here right now in a Google Meet with a friend of mine. We met actually in person recently, and he is the founder of an organization here in Atlanta, City Takers, but also the pastor of a church in Atlanta as well, Crossover Church, ATL. So I want to introduce you to my friend Scott Free. Scott, say hello to everybody.
What's happening, everybody? It's an honor to be with you today, and I'm just excited about this conversation. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about first, just start me off with who is City Takers? Who is Crossover Church? What's the story of you guys? And then I want to hear a little bit about your story, but let's start kind of with City Takers, Crossover.
So City Takers exists to raise up urban missionaries that transform cities through hip hop, love, and Jesus. And we do that in 3 different ways. We do it by loving a city, drawing a city, and building a city. So our love a city aspect of the mission that we do is where we go to where the people are. So we have a heart for the poor, the marginalized, the broken people, people who feel like they don't fit into the traditional church. And so we go and love them wherever they're at. So in the community, in the jails, in the homeless shelters, in the drug rehab centers, going to them, meeting tangible needs, literally just loving our neighbors and being the hands and feet of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's love. Draw City is anytime we do an event that we're drawing people to us. We do a lot of block parties. We started a outreach church service over 10 years ago that we do every last Friday of the month, and we're asking people to come to us. We also have a FM Christian hip hop radio show on Victory 91.5. Most people don't even realize that. And we play Christian hip hop music where people are tuning in, and everything we do, we're sharing the gospel. And we believe that the power is in the word, and transformation comes from Jesus and him alone. And so that's love, draw. And then we have Build a City, which is our mentorship, discipleship arm of the mission. And that's where Crossover Church ATL comes into play, because after 10 years of doing urban ministry in the city, people were experiencing Jesus. People are like, man, where's your church? We want to go to your church. And all of us had different home churches at the time. And we would tell people to just, pray about where God wants you, which is the right answer, and visit different places, and God will tell you where you need to be. But just being honest, after 10 years of sending people just away at telling them to pray about where God wanted them, very, very, very few people got plugged into a local church. And so we realized that, we had to become the answer to, a bigger problem, was people weren't transitioning into a traditional model church. So that's where we planted. So City Takers planted Crossover Church, ATL, in 2019 as an aspect of the love draw and build methods of reaching people with the gospel. So that's kind of like the 30,000 foot view of what we got going on. It's been an amazing journey. We've been doing it almost 15 years in the city of Atlanta as an urban outreach. And I really feel like we're just getting started.
That's amazing. And I actually got to go up and to see where you guys are at. And you guys are, for some people who don't know, you're with another organization that's up there. Your church's location, your offices, where you guys meet for church. You guys are actually in City of Refuge. It's the name of the organization. Well, I want just briefly kind of give people an idea. What does City of Refuge do? Why did it make sense for you guys to kind of partner with them?
Yeah, so they are an organization on the west side of Atlanta, again, focused on the hurting and the poor and the inner city neighborhood here on the west side of Atlanta. One beautiful thing, an amazing thing, that City of Refuge, out of many that they do, but they're very about collaboration. So they have a 200,000 square foot warehouse space here on the west side of Atlanta that they offer to their partners, different space, and that you can come in and house different organizations. So there's a medical, behavioral, and dental medical facility. There's a middle school and high school Christian education. There's a daycare. There's a sex trafficking organization. There's a women and children's homeless shelter here. And again, a lot of those are different organizations, and some are run by City of Refuge, some are run by different nonprofits. But the beautiful thing about what we were doing is we really had a heart to go outward into the community, but we never really had a home base. We never had a place to send people to because we were kind of all over the place in a good way. But, when God started to really just break our heart for discipleship and church planning, and, that's like 2017, 2018, we were starting to look for locations. Long story short, God opened the door for us to meet here on the City of Refuge campus. And they gave us about 6,000 square feet of the facility to house the City Takers headquarters, as well as a venue to plant the church. And, they were like, what you guys do speak to the people more so than a lot of things that, that have happened here in the past. So they literally rolled out the red carpet for us. And it's just been an amazing, amazing partnership, amazing family, because it's just very kingdom here. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of people working together for the purpose of advancing the kingdom ultimately and being the church.
Absolutely. How wonderful is that? And, for people who are long-term community Christian people, all of that should sound just so familiar to the heart of our church. It was probably 15 or maybe more years ago when we really kind of started what we call around here our Do Something campaigns, which were really focused on people suffering from poverty and hunger and marginalized groups of people, and saying, I can't do everything, but I can do something. I can get out there. I can do something to bring the kingdom of God to bear in someone's life and to bring some of the good news of Jesus. And then over the past, year or two here, we've really been focusing on, in terms of marginalization, racial reconciliation and working towards racial justice. And so much of that is key to the kingdom and the gospel, and bringing together just diverse groups of people who otherwise would have nothing in common other than their love for Jesus. And so I know at Crossover and City Takers, I know I remember us having a conversation how central that is for you guys as well.
Yeah, I have a huge heart for racial reconciliation, and I've been in that conversation since I've been in ministry, and God has used us as not only an advocate, but as a example to the church as a whole. When we gather on Sundays, our church is so diverse. We have people walking from the neighborhood. We have women and children that live in a homeless shelter. We have women rescued out of sex trafficking. We have doctors driving in, lawyers driving in, you know what I mean? Because I think people just want something real, and they want church to reflect heaven. And I think
Amen.
What God is doing in the inner city right now is that, especially like here with what we're doing. And I want to say that your church, Community Christian, helped us launch the church. And just in that season, when we were just really just praying through that and seeking God, like, you guys stepped up, and so I just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching this, who's part of Community Christian, because you are a part of City Takers in the inner city. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. So Scott, why don't you tell me a little bit for people who don't know what's your story? How'd you get it? How'd you get involved in ministry? How'd you get involved in City Takers? All that.
I'd love to. So I was born and raised in a city called Miami, Florida. And I grew up in what many would call the hip hop culture. And so I was letting these famous rappers of the early 90s disciple me and pour into my life. And so when I was trying to be like them, in other words, and they were discipling me into death and destruction and really an empty life, even though I thought I was doing well for myself. So I started DJing when I was in high school, in the 90s, early 90s. And man, I mean, I was involved in all kind of stuff, from drugs to alcohol to premarital sex to, because all of this was part of the culture. So to me, it wasn't just about music. It was really about lifestyle and culture. And culture, it speaks its own language. Every culture has their own language, has their own dress code, has their own food, that they like. And there's just a lifestyle that comes along with culture. So I was following this hip hop lifestyle as a young man in Miami, Florida. Now, one thing I will say, the benefit about growing up in Miami, Florida, I was in a high school filled with all types of people groups. And I thought that was the normal for a young kid in Miami, Florida. Like, my high school was full of Haitians, Jamaicans, people from South America, people from Europe, people from all over the place. So I grew up in a melting pot of people in a city called Miami, Florida. So fast forward, I got involved in just things that a young person shouldn't get involved in. And I was kind of in and out of jail at 17 and 18 years old. When I was 19, I had got a girl pregnant. And when I was 20, I had a son. And when my son was born, when I was 20 years old, I looked at him literally the day in the hospital. I looked at him and I said, I got to do something different with my life, because I'm either going to be dead or in prison. And so fast forward, I ended up picking everybody up and moving from Miami, Florida to Atlanta, because I had a friend that moved to Atlanta. I get to Atlanta thinking everything was going to be great. 6 months in, I found myself looking for the same things that I was running from. And I realized the problem wasn't necessarily around me. The problem was in me. I was the problem. The way I was thinking was the problem. In that same season, I found a friend. I was friends with this guy named Christian Dominguez, and he was helping me move from an apartment to a rental house in Atlanta. And this guy started to share his story with me. I was in a U-Haul truck, moving from one house to another. He was the only one who would help me move. He was a believer. He was a disciple of Jesus. And he started sharing his story with me in a U-Haul truck. I'm driving. He's sharing a story. Long story short, man, I just had this crazy encounter with Jesus while I was driving this U-Haul truck with this guy who I thought was crazy at the time, sharing his story. And he was really sharing the gospel with me. And after that, man, I knew that this Jesus that he was following, that I wanted him, because I was wondering if that Jesus could do the same thing for me that he was telling me that he did for him. And so after that, I started attending the church that he was attending to. And I remember the pastor would do these altar calls. If you want to meet Jesus, come down to the altar. And I went down every Sunday. I was at the altar every Sunday. I'm like, I need to meet him. I didn't realize, I was so naive. I didn't realize that the first time, like in that U-Haul truck, like the Lord, forgave me of my sins. And kind of a little more detail to the U-Haul truck experience. Like I was in this truck and I was stopped at a red light, and is the best way for me to describe what had happened. It's almost like I had this vision, and I seen every time that God the Father saved my life, even when I was in the world physically, I saw myself like almost losing my life. And I just knew in my heart, in my mind, that God had saved my life in that moment. Boom, 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 almost like a movie reel. And then the end of the movie reel was me as a 12-year-old boy with a skateboard in my hand, getting on this bus on a Friday night, because this outreach ministry used to pick a bunch of kids up in the neighborhood and take them to this church so they could skateboard and play basketball and do all this stuff. So I seen myself as this 12-year-old boy with a skateboard in my hand, going to this church that I never met Jesus at, you know what I mean? That I remember praying, I remember hearing the gospel, but I woke up to a car honking the horn, and I kind of got scared because I realized I'd been weeping in the U-Haul truck. And for the first time, I knew God was calling me, because I had realized that God had been chasing me since I was 12 years old. He had been pursuing me. And so my life was never the same after that. Honestly, like, I hated who I used to be. I knew I was a new man. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go hard after Jesus. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to do whatever he's called me to do. So I just started serving, started getting involved in ministry, started just going out, loving on people. But I felt, if I could just be transparent and honest, I felt more comfortable outside of the church than I did inside the church. And again, I know, biblically there's no difference. The church is the people, but I just felt like I could be more myself around people on the streets, around the broken, not, the people who had it all together. And so I found myself, going to do more things outside of the walls of the church. And it just grew on me, man. It just, God started to shape me. God started to change this thing between my ears, change the way I was thinking. And he just called, he called me. And in 2004, I just knew I was called to be a missionary. And I said yes. I thought I was going to go overseas somewhere. Honestly, man, I was like, man, I'm in. Send wherever you want me to go, God, send me. Well, God sent me to the unreached people of the inner city of Atlanta, of the hip hop culture, because nobody was speaking their language. Nobody was, you know what I mean? Like, had the music that they like. Nobody had the DNA. And so that's when the vision of City Takers started to come around, to use some hip hop music, to use the culture to reach the culture. But people who are unashamed of the gospel, people who are sold out to Jesus, people who are willing to preach the word. And so 2008, 2009, God gave me this vision for City Takers. And we've been walking this thing out in jails, in public high schools, college campuses, drug rehab centers, urban communities, where we'll go in and, use music and we don't do music every time, but typically we'll use music as a tool, share the gospel. And we've just seen so many stories, so many lives transformed. But the most beautiful thing now is we actually have a church that looks like them, sounds like them, feels like them, that we can invite them to. And the church has been an amazing, amazing resource, amazing family that we can take people deep in. We launched the church in September 2009. And then March 2020, 5 months later, COVID hits.
Yeah,
we had to shift some things. And the crazy thing about COVID was, we had to rethink a lot of things, but a lot of the outreach stuff continued. Because, there's still people on the streets, there's still people in the prisons, there's still people, in these communities, and the needs went through the roof. And the beautiful thing about 2020, and I'm going to testify for a moment, is God met every single one of those needs.
Amen.
God showed up big, people showed up big, and we launched a ministry called Fresh Food Fridays, where literally we were getting tractor trailer loads of food to distribute in the communities, because people were, couldn't afford food. People, kids couldn't go to school. And still in the city of Atlanta, the school still ain't open. So we were able to get laptops for some kids. We're able to tutor some kids. I mean, like, literally, if I could sit here and I'll talk for the rest of the time just about what God did in 2020 that really had set us up to where we're at now. And so, we moved in this complex in 2019. And God knew that, what was going to happen in 2020. And he just set us up for fruitful, effective ministry. And so,
yeah,
I've been doing that ever since, man. It's just been an amazing journey. We work with a lot of different churches. Churches send volunteers down here. Churches, we host inner city mission trips. So, if your church ever wanted to send a youth, young adult group, men's group down here for a weekend or a week, we host them. They can sleep literally behind here is rooms with bunk beds. We have 40 beds that we host inner city mission trips. We do 3 meals a day and ministry all day, every day. You'll leave totally exhausted, but you'll leave totally renewed and revived and refreshed about what God is doing in your life. And we have a heart to teach the church how to be the church, because we believe that church has to go beyond Sundays, especially, with what God is doing. He's doing a new thing. And so we feel like the new wineskin church is a missional church, is a church that we're training and equipping the saints for the work of ministry so that the saints could go out, the disciples could go out and make more disciples. So it's a ministry of multiplication instead of event driven.
That's
I'm sorry, I talked a lot. That's just my heart. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Missionary and a minister of the gospel.
I'm a pastor too, man. You wind us up, we just go. I like it, but that's good. Yeah, I think what you're talking about there too. Once again, for community Christian people, we've been turning this same corner recently, and I think this is kind of just God at work even in this conversation for people who are listening in of this idea of not being event driven, that Sunday morning is not the only deal, that it's so easy in church for the Sunday morning service to be the deal. But this thing you're talking about of discipling people, that discipling people, that's the whole goal. And that's the key.
And that's the call. That's the call. We're called to go into the world and make disciples of all nations. And I always tell our people that, they're going to reach more people than I can. It's my job, right, and my call to shepherd, to prepare you, to equip you to go out and make disciples. And so I look at Sunday as a gas station, a refueling station. You come here, get taught, get equipped, get filled up in order to take what you have out there into the world. Mm-hmm. And so that's the model that Jesus established. And I believe that this is where he's taken the church back to. Is, like the church is the answer to a broken and dying world. That's what Jesus established as the answer. And we are part of that. And it's not pastoral driven. It's all of us working as ministers of the gospel together for the advancement of the kingdom on this earth.
Amen and amen.
That's what excites me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Whether it's community Christian, city, whoever, like we're all part of one church.
Yes.
And when we really understand that and get that down into our heart, like we're unstoppable.
Yes.
And that hell will not prevail against his church.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of partnerships like this, of our church and your church, is every victory is a victory for us both. And there are things we can share. There are things we can work together on and work in that direction. And so, just because this will probably all end up on our longer unedited version for the podcast. Yeah. Why don't you, Scott, why don't you tell us a couple things that City Takers or Crossover is doing in the community? Just, 2 or 3 little things that you think are really making a difference right there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, when COVID hit in March and I realized that people were literally going hungry, we launched this ministry called Fresh Food Fridays. And the reason why it's called Fresh Food Fridays is the community that we live in the inner city of Atlanta is a federally designated food desert. And what that means is nobody has access to fresh foods within walking distance, meaning they can't go get, salad. They can't go get anything that me and you have access to at Kroger or Publix. There ain't one down here. The nearest Walmart, I think, is about 7 miles away. So you either need a car or you're going to take public transportation, which is going to take you probably an hour each way, at least an hour. Long story short, they only have fast food. They have gas station food. That's all they have access to, or corner store food. And so we launched a ministry called Fresh Food Fridays, where we are giving a 40-pound box of food that has veggies, fruits, milks, cheeses, eggs, and some type of meat, whether it's poultry or meat itself. And we're handing that out every Friday. Now, the beautiful thing about that is it does meet a tangible need. It definitely meets a tangible need. We can very easily open these doors up and have lines of cars lining up and putting boxes in people's trunks. God bless churches that do that. I think that's amazing. And I think that fulfills, part of Jesus saying, take care of the poor, feed the hungry. But what we do is we take the food to the people. We go into the communities. We're literally knocking on doors, building relationships with people, as well as meeting needs. And the beautiful thing about it is, I'll give you a quick story about, I was in the community. This was probably this summer. And, there was a lady frying chicken and she had her door cracked open. Her name is Cassandra. And I was like, who's that cooking that chicken? Just kind of having fun. And she's like, it's me, sweetie. Come on, come on over here. So I walk over there and she's sitting down on a bucket in front of the stove and she's frying chicken, kind of reaching up on the stove. And man, I mean, this chicken, she actually let me try the chicken. It was amazing. It was A1 chicken. And long story short, me and her built a really cool friendship. And I would go visit her every Friday. I would make it a point to go visit Cassandra. I knock on her door. She had 2 kids, one 10-year-old, one 6-year-old, and she would just invite me in the house. And she was struggling with fear and anxiety. She would say that she'd have multiple anxiety attacks every day. So I said, listen, I would just love to pray for you, because back in the day, I used to suffer with anxiety. So I knew how it felt. And I knew how I had to change my thinking, and I had to know the word, because the word, I was telling her this, I said, the word dispels lies. The truth dispels lies. The truth is the word. The truth is Jesus. And so I said, you got to understand the word, number one, but you also got to know the word, because it's the word that's going to, dispel the anxiety and the fear that you're dealing with. So long story short, every Friday I teach her a Bible verse. I pray for her. And over time, she would get so happy. She's like, I only had 1 panic attack this week. Now, remember, I'm bringing food to her, but it wasn't just about the food. It was about really having church in this woman's house. And so the next week, she'd be like, yeah, I didn't have any panic attacks. I really want to get off my medication because my medication makes me feel this way and that way. And so every Friday we were going back to her house. Well, she heard about this big Christmas outreach that we did the week before Christmas. We set up a huge toy store at the City Takers headquarters that we wanted parents to come shop for their children and for parents to give the toys to the children on Christmas and the parents to be the heroes, not us. We didn't want to just give the kids the toys. We're trying to, bring dignity back into the community. And as parents, we wanted them to be the ones providing for the children. So we set up this toy store where parents could shop for the kids absolutely free. She heard about that and she was so distraught that she couldn't make it. And so I was like, don't worry about it. I'll come back, a couple days before Christmas and I'll bring toys for your kids and I'll give them to you and you give them to your kids. She started to tear up saying that, would we really do that for her children? And I'm like, of course, yes, no problem. So we show up Wednesday before Christmas. I think Christmas fell on a Friday this year. Gave her this whole garbage bag full of toys for her kids. And she's weeping in her house. And she's like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, you don't got to say nothing. And I remembered that we had these 2 bikes that were just donated that day. And I sent one of my guys I was like, hey, let's give these kids these bikes. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is my friend. I want to bless her children. And so we went and got the bikes. And I have this video that I would love to show you guys at another time. And maybe I'll send it to you. You could put it on the video. This kid, it was hard to hide the bikes from the kids, first of all, because we took the bikes out of the truck and this kid's face just lit up. The 6-year-old jumped on the bike so fast. Well, it was his first time ever on a bike. So I'm pushing him around the parking lot a little bit. And the other kid couldn't fit on the other bike. He was too big. So one of my other guys was like, you know what? I feel led. I'm going to go buy him something from Walmart. I'm like, look, you don't got to do that. He's like, no, I want to. He bought him this because they didn't even have a TV in the house. So he bought him a TV and a DVD player and just blessed them. And I'm like, this seems like we're going above and beyond. But I was like, just letting God just do what God could do. And so we were able to bless this family. The next day, or Friday was Christmas. Me and my wife went out of town the next day, which was a Saturday, and we were down in Florida with some family that we have down there. I got a call the next Friday during the next Fresh Food Friday outreach from a guy named Ruben who helps us run that outreach. And he was like, hey, Scott, can you talk? And I was like, yeah, I could talk. He's like, you're not going to believe this. Miss Cassandra passed away the Sunday after Christmas. And I was like, hold on, what? Yeah, Cassandra passed away the Sunday after Christmas. And I was like it just hit me really hard. I'm like, because this is my friend. This is somebody I hang out with every Friday, and I go visit her every Friday. She invites me in her home. She cooks for me. I mean, this is like someone who I've grown to love over the last 7-8 months of my life. And I had realized, man, in that moment, I'm like, oh my God. And the Holy Spirit just quickened in my spirit. And he was like, she's with me. She's with me. And I had realized that there was God knew those boys were going to lose their mother in a few days. And God sent us, you know what I mean, to bless them. And God sent us there for months, bringing the gospel to her through this food ministry that's called Fresh Food Fridays. And so we do want to meet tangible needs, and we do that, but our heart is about eternity. Our heart is about, preaching the gospel so that people could know him and live with him eternally. So that's just one small glimpse of many stories from this one simple ministry called Fresh Food Fridays that happens every Friday at 5:00, based out of the City Takers headquarters. We take multiple cars and vans, and we go into the community, and people, when they see us roll up, people are just super excited. They come out their house. Some of them are inviting us in their house. And it's just a beautiful thing about just being the church. That's one simple thing we do. Another thing we do is every 4th and 5th Monday, we go downtown right off Peachtree Street and Ellis Street, and we set up an outdoor church service where men, women, and children living on the streets come and hear the gospel. And not only do they hear the gospel, we feed up to 300 people a hot meal, something like worth value, something that I would want to eat and you would want to eat. We give them a hot meal. And we've been doing that, man. That was actually the first time I preached the gospel, probably almost 20 years ago. And we've been doing that really ever since. Or I've been doing it. We've been doing it as City Takers for 10 plus years. That's just a few of many things that we do. Again, we just have a heart to love the marginalized, love the poor. Jesus says in Matthew 25, when you did it unto the least of these, it's like you did it unto me. And so it's ministering to Jesus just as much as it's ministering to the people. And we're just honored to be able to serve God that way. We're honored to be able to love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind, and love our neighbors as ourselves. And so that's our heart. That's what we do. Citytakers.com has all the different things and details. So if somebody wanted to get on there and find out exactly more, all the programs and outreaches we do. One of the things that we're asking for prayer for is we want to really start a youth development program, because especially right now, there's no school. And so they say like over half the kids in this neighborhood aren't even logging on to online school. So they're just out running the streets 24 hours a day. And so they're getting into things that they probably shouldn't be getting into because the neighborhood is discipling them. And so we want to be able to draw them into City Takers. So we're building out a music studio because all these kids want to rap. All these kids want to make music. And so we want to use rap music as a way to draw them in. But when they're in, really pour into their life, really give them the gospel, really love them, really show them, you know what I mean? Like love that they don't really even experience in their own households, some of them. And so we're trying to, raise some capital right now to launch that program. We're also doing a t-shirt production studio where kids can use art, graphic design, and literally print them. I got a blank one on right now, but this is one of our shirts. But we can design different things on the shirts. And again, a kid can go from having an idea to having a full-blown t-shirt line that now we can direct them on how to make money legally, teach them about finances, teach them how to actually run something like that, and literally take their smarts, take their hustle and point it in a positive direction, as well as discipleship, mentorship, and all of that. So that's just something new. We're starting to build out right now. And that's something new that COVID had turned up because, the kids are just out here 24/7 instead of going to school.
Yeah.
So
that is awesome stuff. And like you said, it'll all be up on the website, citytakers.com. You'll see that on the screen while we've been talking here. And for those who are watching this right now in our virtual lobby, you should know that this interview's been edited down. You'll get to see the full-length version of the interview on our weekly podcast, either this Wednesday or next Wednesday. So make sure you're tuning in to see when that will come up. You can see the whole thing. A lot of great conversation here between me and Scott. But now's the time for our online virtual lobby that we like to kind of shift a little bit, give you guys the chance to join in the conversation as we've been asking you to do. And hopefully you've been doing that the whole time we've been talking. But we're going to have some discussion questions that come up. Scott and I are going to answer those questions and give you guys some time to talk to one another. So don't just be listening to us. We want you guys engaging as well. So here's kind of the first question. Scott, what do you think on this? What's your go-to movie theater snack? Now, ain't almost no one going to the movie theater anymore, but what's your go-to?
I got it. Raisinets. Got to have those Raisinets, man. If I'm at the movies, it's Raisinets. My second choice, or you didn't ask me for my second choice.
Go ahead. Give me what's second choice?
Second choice, Snow Caps.
Oh, man.
I'm old school, bro.
Yeah, no, that's my wife right there, man. The Raisinets, man, she's crazy about Raisinets.
Ooh. And don't give me the dark chocolate Raisinets. Ooh, that's a little bit of, I hope they have them in heaven.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, man. But you got to go to the movie theater to get Raisinets because they're like double the price of other candy anywhere else.
Yes, you do.
They're crazy expensive. Besides probably popcorn as being my thing, I'm a Milk Duds guy. I like chocolate and caramel, whole thing, absolutely delicious. One of my daughters, I have 4 daughters, and so one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, is really into Twizzlers, so that's what I eat most of the time now when we're watching something because Dad doesn't get to really pick anymore, but it's just the way that goes. So hopefully you guys are answering that. A favorite go-to movie theater snack. All right, now I'll be interested here because for you on this next question here, Scott, because I know you got multiple cities you got to rep here, but what's your favorite sports team? If you can, and I know you may are you a multiple sports guy? Or are you like one?
Well, football would be my number one sport. I grew up playing football, but so what do I represent? Is that what the question is?
Yeah. Let me
preface it with this. My teams always disappoint me. But I'm a fan. So I'm a Dolphins fan first and foremost.
Okay.
And again, the only statistic that I could stand on is before my time, 1972, the only undefeated team in the NFL.
There you go.
Miami Dolphins, 72 Dolphins. So I'm a Dolphins fan, but I'm also a Falcons fan. And, I'm still hurt by the Super Bowl. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. But so I'm a Dolphins and a Falcons fan.
Were you happy as an NFL fan with Super Bowl this year? Are you a Bucs guy? You a Brady guy? How's that go for you?
My wife is from Tampa, so yes, I'm kind of like married into a Buccaneers fan. So yeah, you know what? Like Brady has made me respect him because being a Dolphins fan, New England has always been like our rival.
Right.
I've always been like, man, I hope New England loses. I hope New England loses every year, especially after they did what they did to the Falcons.
Right.
But when Brady left New England and went to Tampa, and they lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 games in the beginning. I'm like, oh, praise God, they're gonna, they're gonna lose. And what he did, he took them all the way. I said, listen, if Brady wins the Super Bowl with Tampa, I'm not a Brady fan. I'm not, I will admit that he's the greatest.
There you go.
And he did it, man. And I'm like, you know what? The dude is amazing. And I think sometimes it's like me young watching Michael Jordan. I knew he was great, but I didn't realize just how, when you're watching him, just how much of a, you know what I mean? Like an influence and impact he would have on culture and history. And I think that's what's happening when we're watching Brady right now.
Yeah. Well, I am it's no shock to anybody who watches here. I'm a Hawks fan. I'm an NBA guy. I grew up in a house of all different sports, primarily baseball, football, but NBA as well. And NBA is the only thing, man, I could hold on to. Hawks are not breaking my heart this year. Not great, but last year they broke my heart, in the year before that, and the year before that, and.
I've been to games. I enjoy going to Hawks games. I like basketball.
Yeah.
So many games. Sometimes it's just hard to keep up with it.
I have a friend who, my wife and I have been to the MLK game that has been in Atlanta, and I have a friend this year who texted me, was like, I'm praying for you today because you couldn't go to the game because of COVID. So he was looking out for me because I wasn't able to go on MLK Day. But regardless, I know there were some people there. I know they're letting some people into the stadium, but not me. So, all right. Here's another question here. Hopefully, you guys answer this one. All right. If you had to be on a reality TV show, what would it be? What would be your go-to? If could be a game show, could just be I don't know, Kardashians. It don't matter. What?
For me, it would be probably be a Survivor show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. I'm a city guy. I'm not really an outdoors guy, but I think it's the challenge for me. You know what I mean? Like, and I like go somewhere. It's one of those extreme ones where it's like you got nothing except for a knife and a fishing line or something like that. Like, I just want to know if I could survive for, I don't know, 20 days or 21 days, whatever those shows are. So I think it would be some type of Survivor show.
Yeah.
Just to see if I can survive off the land, and you know what I mean? Like,
that is
my own meals, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would do. I would hope I'd do good, but
that is 100% my answer as well. And I just realized, I don't think I've ever shared this before. And Scott, you wouldn't know this about me, but about 3 or 4 years ago, most of my life, I've been about 80 to 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I made the decision, I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to start. And so I lost a whole bunch of weight and started getting in shape. And this is, no one at the church knows this. About 60% of the reason why was because my wife wanted me to go on the TV show Survivor. She wanted me to go on the CBS Survivor show. We're huge Survivor fans. We're huge, like, Big Brother fans. All those kind of, living with other people, having to make it. And I said, well, I can't go on Survivor if I'm 300 pounds. So I gotta lose some weight. I gotta get in shape. And then I got in shape. And then now we have 4 kids, and my wife's like, you ain't going anywhere for a month at a time and leaving me with all these kids. So that's my life now. But yeah, Survivor would 100% be my answer. I'd be all about that.
Man, I just want to, think, can I finish it? Can I do it?
Yes. Yeah. I'm very competitive. So I think all that would be.
And if you win $1 million a day, hey, I'll take that too.
That's right. That's right. I ain't gonna complain. All right. Final question here. Yeah. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Ooh, best concert. That's a good question, man. I've been to a lot of when I was young. You know what? This is crazy. And this is, you think my answer would be a hip hop guy. But I'm going to say, man, when I was young, I mean, I was probably in high school. So I was probably like 16, 17 years old. They had this big concert on South Beach in Miami. And I'll never forget, this is going to sound, I don't even want to show people this because my answer, people are going to clown me for this answer. But here it is. I'm just being honest. Bon Jovi played on the sand in like, I don't know, early 90s in Miami. And I mean, it was crazy. Must have been like 20,000 people there or something. I mean, it was just crazy. So it was like, I don't know. I just remember that back in the day being like a highlight.
Yeah, I can see that.
Jovi concert. Hold on. I just remembered another one though. There was this other concert called Lollapalooza. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So Lollapalooza had Beastie Boys, Tribe Called Quest, and a bunch of other bands. Again, it was like the same season of my life, but that was another really crazy concert.
Yeah, mine is also one that I also people are always
gonna make fun of you.
But mine is I went and saw, my wife and I went and saw Linkin Park in like 2012 or maybe something. I don't remember when it was, but I don't remember what made us just decide to get, we loved going to concerts and we just loved going to all this kind of stuff. And so for some reason we saw they were coming. We said, well, let's go. Cause we listened to Linkin Park in middle school and all that kind of stuff. We're like, okay, we'll go. It was phenomenal. Like they blew me away. And I'm a big music guy. And most people at the church know me obviously as primarily like a guitarist. And so I was big into rock for a long time, but then all through middle school growing up, hip hop was my thing. And so all of that like blending together, it was just a really good show. So people always make fun of me because my metalhead friends always get on to me because Linkin Park's not real metalhead. All my hip hop friends get on to me because they're not really hip hop. And so it's like, I can't win with nobody.
I think the crazy thing like about me is I've always respected music and artistry, and performance. Like, so sometimes like the rock guys like would outperform the hip hop guys all day long. You know what I mean? The hip hop guys are just standing there, and which is cool and I enjoy it. But yeah, some of those concerts were really cool back in the day.
All right, so I got one last question here. This isn't, and no one else has to answer. It's probably just end up on the unedited thing. You said you ran a Christian hip hop radio show.
Yeah, still do, man.
Yeah, so you got to tell me. So I grew up listening to like Christian rock, and I grew up listening to like mainstream hip hop. I've never been able to get into Christian hip hop. You got to tell me who am I supposed to be listening to? Who do I need to know? Because everyone that anyone tells me to is just, I hate to say it, they're a little corny. Some out there, but I know there's got to be some guys out there that are just killing.
Friends, get the notepad out. I'm going to give you probably 5 to 10 people real quick. Okay. Obviously, I think everybody knows who Lecrae is, right? So
yes, and I do like Lecrae. I enjoy Lecrae.
We'll throw Lecrae out there, okay? I think there's some other guys, like if you liking some more like raw street, kind of like hip hop, especially from back in the day style, like this guy named Eshawn Burgundy. I'm gonna give you his name, Eshawn Burgundy. There's another guy named Bizzle, Bizzle. Super good, I think he's from Houston, Texas. There's a lot of people. There are a lot of younger dudes coming out now. One of my good friends actually comes to our church named Hulvey, Hulvey. Kind of got a little more melodic, newer sound, super anointed, super cool. Ladies, there's a girl named Wande, Wande. Wande. She's super awesome. Who else? There's another guy named Thizzle, Thisl, not to be mixed up with Bizzle. Cool names, huh? Cannon, Cannon, is another guy. Cannon. How many is that?
That's a lot, man. That's like 7. I mean, that's a lot to get me going.
Start with that, and I'll keep feeding you different ones. Also, City Takers has a playlist. I don't know, anybody got Spotify?
Yes.
We update a playlist probably every week or every few weeks, and they have about 40 to 50 different songs on it. A lot of people listen to our playlist. So if you're looking for positive, clean Christian hip hop and you're on Spotify, just look up City Takers, and we have a playlist that we constantly update.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Especially just for, I know we got some younger people listening who are big into hip hop, but they face the same thing I do, man. It's like, I don't know. I got kids now and they'll ask me like, Daddy, what did you used to listen to? So I'll pull something up and I'll pull up some Outkast, or I'll pull up some Ludacris, or I'll pull up something like that, man, as an ATL guy. And then about 30 seconds into the song, I'm like, I don't know. Hold on.
If you want something that's kind of like real ATL, like real kind of like trap type sound, this guy named 1K P-Son. And this is a guy that I've been walking with for over 10 years, discipling. 1K P-S-O-N. He actually just dropped the album like last month. It's super, super awesome, man. Super, super. But it's really ATL, really street. So he's someone that I would like, people in the neighborhood, I would push his music to.
Yeah.
Because it would be like lining up with like a Little Baby, or, you know, someone who's out there right now. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you. And thank you for everything you and City Takers and Crossover are doing for the kingdom and just this partnership. It's awesome.
Amen. Well, I love you guys. And, you know, like I said, like, you guys are still a huge part of what God is doing in the city. And I'm excited about the future of just our partnership and what God is doing.
Absolutely.
So, guys, love y'all.